Once upon a time, in a calm village, lived a beautiful young girl named Buchi. She was known for her diligent nature and beautiful skin that sparkled like diamonds. She was a peaceful and cheerful girl, well known in the village. One evening, Buchi felt an unusual urge to take a walk to the village tree close to the abandoned market. She left her hut and made her way through the bush path. Everywhere was silent as she walked through. As she approached the entrance, the cold, gentle breeze from the tree calmed her nerves. She stood in front of the abandoned market, staring and feeling the evening breeze, thanking the gods for a wonderful free gift of nature, when she noticed something strange but beautiful and odd. At the village tree, she saw two beautiful and attractive eyes staring back at her. She was shocked and scared as her heart skipped for a moment. She blinked her eyes twice and wiped her face with her hand, thinking her eyes were playing tricks on her. At a moment, she realized her eyes were perfectly fine. Filled with fear, Buchi stared at the eyes at the middle of the tree as she asked, "Who are you and what do you want?" The eyes from the tree blinked and a sweet voice echoed from the tree. "Do not be afraid, Buchi, offspring of Njoko. I am Kalo, the spirit of the tree." At once, Buchi's eyes were widely opened. Looking surprised, she remembered her father used to tell her so many stories about the spirit of the tree before he passed away, but encountering one is something beyond her imaginations. She gathered some courage and replied to the spirit, "Kalo, why do you choose to show yourself to me?" The spirit replied her saying, "I have known you even before you were born, and have watched you grow into a beautiful and peaceful woman. Your kindness and peaceful nature have captivated me. I'm all alone and long for a peaceful companionship like you. Do you mind being my friend?" Buchi's heart was still in shock, for she still did not understand what the spirit was saying. But she was touched by the spirit's plea, and she agreed to be his friend, and from that day forward, Buchi and Kalo became friends, and they shared drinks and tell stories together. After many weeks, the villagers were attacked by unknown strangers and do away with their silvers which they inherited from their forefathers, killed their animals and took all their harvest away. The villagers were scared for their lives and worried for the land. They consulted the oracle of the land to know what they have done wrong and the solution to it. And they were told that an unseen force which lived in the village tree was behind the calamity that has befallen the land. At once, the villagers gathered at the tree, worried and confused. They wondered what could have angered the spirit to warrant this punishment. The villagers did all they could to communicate and plead with the spirit for mercy, and they were more worried and confused as the spirit was completely silent. The unknown strangers continued to attack them, but this time their animals, silvers and crops were all taken away, and the villagers lived in fear and worries. Buchi decided to confront the spirit, and with a heavy heart, she approached the tree and called out to Kalo. The eyes appeared, but carried a deep pain and sorrow. Buchi asked, "Kalo, why the calamity had to befall the land, and if they had done something wrong to displease him. Kalo replied with a sorrowful voice, "Buchi, the villagers had forgotten the promise they made to me many years ago." Buchi was surprised and asked, what promise had they forgotten? And then Kalo replied her saying, "Many years back, the villagers were attacked by some enemies to a war. The villagers were overpowered by the enemies and about to make them their slaves. The villagers pleaded with the spirit of the tree to help them from the hands of the enemies. They promised to offer animal sacrifices to him every month, from generations to generations, for giving them victory over their enemies. The spirit of the tree heard their cry and pleads. The enemies were all swallowed up by the spirit of the tree. The villagers offered the sacrifice for a few years and stopped, and that triggers the anger of the spirit, for the villagers had forgotten their promise for many years." Buchi pleaded with the spirit to show mercy upon the land and its people. Buchi felt a surge of responsibility and promised to deliver the message across the people and make sure they fulfill the promise which they had made years ago. Kalo was moved by Buchi's words of sincerity and agreed to give her a chance and spare the land if they listened and fulfilled their promise. Buchi shared Kalo's message to the villagers. The villagers refused to offer animal sacrifices to the spirit of the tree, but the more they refused, the more calamities befell them. Days later, Buchi reminded them of Kalo's message, but this time the villagers were tired of losing their animals, silvers, and crops, and they were remorsed for being selfish and neglecting the promise they made. The next morning, the villagers gathered at the village tree and offered the animal sacrifices to the spirit of the tree and pleaded for him to show mercy and stop the calamity that had befallen the land. A gentle breeze swept through the village. Buchi thanked Kalo for believing and trusting her and for sparing her village. The once sorrowful eyes and voice of Kalo now became happy, filled with gratitude. The unknown strangers never showed up ever again for years, as the villagers stuck to their promise. The villagers lived in peace without fear of losing their silvers, animals, and crops. Buchi was hailed as the heroine, and her friendship with Kalo continued and promised to make sure the villagers never backslide from their promise. And from that day forward, the story of Buchi and Kalo continued to inspire the kindness and keeping of promise.